This video is brought to you by Saraswati Vidyalaya Union. Friends, today we are going to see in detail about the reproduction in lower and higher animals. In that, we are going to study about menstrual cycle. This menstrual cycle in female's body. Now, menstrual cycle. This menstrual cycle is also known as the female reproductive or ovarian cycle. Now, let's see about the introduction. The cyclic changes occur in every month in ovaries and wall of uterus of human female from menarche to menopause. It is known as the menstrual cycle, or it is called as the female reproductive cycle. Now, what is menarche? Menarche means the age of female at which menstrual cycle is start. It is called as the menarche. And the menopause, the age of female at which menstrual cycle is stopped, it is called as the menopause. And the timing between this menarche and menopause is called as the menstruation timing. And this menstrual cycle or the ovarian cycle, it is the characteristic of primate female mammals like monkeys, apes and man. Now let's see in detail about this menstruation. First, see the definition. Periodic discharge of blood, unfertilized egg, cellular debris, etc. in every month from uterine wall through vagina is called menstruation or menstrual cycle. The cycle is usually completed in 28 days with individual variation of 1 to 3 days. And these changes takes place under the effect of few hormones, that is the gonadotropin and the ovarian hormone. The egg in every cycle comes alternatively from one of the two ovaries. Means in 1 month the ovary may be coming from right side, and the other month that ovum is coming, the egg is coming from the left side. This menstrual cycle is always absent during the pregnancy, may be suppressed during lactation and permanently stops at menopause. Now let's see about the phases. The cycle is divided into the 4 phases. First one, menstrual phase. Second, proliferative phase, or it is known as the follicular phase. Third one, ovulatory phase. Fourth one, secretory phase, or it is also known as the luteal phase. With the help of these 4 phases, so this cycle is completed within 28 days. Now let's see about the first phase, that is known as the menstrual or destructive phase. First phase, that is the menstrual phase or destructive phase. What happened during this phase? See this, bleeding through vagina indicates the beginning of menstrual phase. It lasts for 5 days, means approximately the days of 3 to 7 days. It occurs in absence of fertilization. During this menstrual phase, there are many changes takes place in endometrium as well as in hormones. Changes in endometrium. As a result of this, internal lining of vagina, fallopian tube and uterus, that means endometrium, broken. The endometrium becomes very thin. It becomes about 1 mm. Changes in hormones. In this, the sharp decrease in the level of female sex hormone, that is progesterone and estrogen level decreases. And due to all these, blood, tissue fluid, mucus, unfertilized oocyte, endometrial lining is discharged through vagina. This blood does not clot due to the presence of fibrinolysis. This menstrual cycle means in this menstrual phase is there. This is also called as the funeral of unfertilized eggs. In these days, many primordial follicles develop into the primary and secondary follicle, that is due to the presence of hormone, that is FSH, that is known as the follicular stimulating hormone. Now let's see this diagram. This diagram indicates changes in hormones and in the menstrual cycle as well as in the endometrium. Yes, during this year, in the first 5 days, blood vessels of endometrium also broken down and the bleeding starts through vagina. The broken down tissue, mucus An unfertilized egg collectively forms a menstrual flow. And during this phase, about 35 to 45 ml of blood discharge along with debris as menses or the menstrual flow. Like these are the changes takes place during this phase. There are the changes in the hormone, ovarian cycle, ovarian hormone level, uterine cycle. Like these are the changes takes place in the menstrual phase. Now let's see the next one. Second phase of menstrual cycle, proliferative phase or follicular phase. Duration between the end of menstruation and release of ovum, that is known as the ovulation. That is called as the proliferative phase. It extends from 5th to 30th day of the menstrual cycle. In this, secondary follicle proceed to develop, but usually one of them develop into the Graafian follicle, means mature follicle. The other secondary follicle get degenerates, and it is called as the atresia. During this phase, there are changes takes place in the hormones such as FSH and estrogen. FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, and estrogen. This FSH increases and it stimulates the growth of primary follicle into the Graafian follicle. And this estrogen, this releases from follicular cell. It stimulates and repair growth of endometrium, internal lining of fallopian tube, network of blood vessels, and vaginal mucosa. During this phase, that endometrium reaches 3 to 5 mm thick, and in this phase only, so let's see in the diagram. In this phase, there are the estrogen hormones start to increase. This phase is also known as the follicular phase, because during this phase there are changes takes place in the follicle. The size of follicle increases. That's why this phase is also known as the follicular phase. Now see the next phase, that is known as the ovulatory phase. It is the shortest phase and it involves rupturing of the mature follicle and releases ovum. It occurs on 14th day of the menstrual cycle. During this phase, that LH hormone, that is known as the luteinizing hormone, increases. It stimulates the rupture of Graafian follicle and release the ovum. It is very important to convert Graafian follicle into the corpus luteum. During this stage, estrogen reaches to its peak, and in this particular phase, we can see in the diagram also there is increase in the LH hormone and FSH hormone. The level of LH hormone is increases, and you can see in the ovarian cycle that ovum is there. It get releases from that Graafian follicle, and here estrogen hormone which is also increases. Now see in the uterine cycle that endometrium, the size of endometrium is increases. Like all these are the changes takes place during this ovulatory phase. Now let's see the next phase. This next phase is known as the secretory phase, or it is also called as the luteal phase. Luteal phase, this phase is the longest phase and it lasts for 14 days from 15 to 28 day of the cycle. After release of secondary oocyte, remaining tissue of Graafian follicle transforms into the corpus luteum under the effect of LH. Corpus luteum secretes this progesterone and estrogen. This corpus luteum, these are nothing but the yellow body. It is also known as a yellow body, and after the discharge of ovum, the remaining cells of this Graafian follicle together forms this corpus luteum. This corpus luteum releases progesterone hormone, and this progesterone secretion is always under the influence of luteinizing hormone. This corpus luteum secretes progesterone and estrogen. This progesterone hormone is there. This progesterone hormone, it is very important for maintaining the thickness of endometrium So it is also called as the pregnancy hormone. And this corpus luteum is active till the placenta takes up the function of secretion of hormone that is called as the human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, that is known as the SCG hormone. In this absence of fertilization, corpus luteum can survive for 2 weeks and then degenerate into the white scar that is called as the corpus albicans. See the diagram. In this diagram you can understand after the development of the follicles, so that follicle becomes the mature follicle, or it is known as the Graafian follicle. After the proper growth of that follicle, so then there is the rupturing of that follicle takes place on the ovulation, and during the ovulation that ova get releases. After releasing the ova, the remaining part, that yellow body structure is there, that is only known as the corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum only releases the hormone progesterone. This progesterone, which is very important for the maintaining pregnancy. And if there is no fertilization, so then this corpus luteum changes into this white scar that is known as the corpus albicans. This corpus luteum releases the other hormones also, such as estrogen and inhibin. So there are changes takes place in the endometrium also. These endometrial glands grow, become coiled and starts uterine secretion. This endometrium more vascularizes and thickens up to 8 to 10 mm. And in this, inhibin hormone is there. It stops the secretion of FSH. Means whenever the fusion is there, whenever there is fertilization is there, so that time it stops the formation of this follicle, and for that purpose it stops the secretion of that FSH. See this next thing. So if ovulated egg fertilized and the embryo is implanted, so there is a secretion of human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, as I have already explained you. This presence of SCG is maternal blood and urine is an indicator of pregnancy. In the absence of fertilization, then there is a next menstrual cycle is there. So that's why while checking the female is pregnant or not, it can be done with the help of the test of that urine also.